everyone, I'm Batya, and I am thrilled to welcome you to my new show on NewsNation, the fairest channel in America. That's what you can expect here, fairness. That doesn't mean we're going to pull punches, but it does mean we will be extending the presumption of grace to those we disagree with, including on the show itself, and seeking common ground even amidst our vigorous debates. We begin, as we always will, by looking back at the week we've just had as a nation and asking, what did we learn about America this week? The country continues to mourn after the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old influencer, evangelist, debater, media personality, and political organizer. Charlie combined all of those roles into one, bringing a spiritual quality to his politicking, the glamour of media to his college debates, and his persona as a man who loved his family and loved his God to everything that he did. He was a once-in-a-generation talent who pretty much single-handedly was responsible for flipping the youth vote towards Trump. In the last election, Trump won nearly half of voters under 30 years old in a 10-point shift to the right in just 4 years. Among young men, it was even starker. They shifted to Trump by 14 points. It's truly astonishing, and it explains a lot of the reaction, not just to Charlie's murder, but to the entire Trump phenomenon. Throughout the 80s and into the 90s, the left felt locked out of power. Ronald Reagan won nearly every state in the nation in a repudiation of leftist politics. But the left still had the culture. They controlled the arts, universities, literature, and the media. Hollywood was liberal, and in many ways, this was good. We made great strides as a nation on important issues like race relations and gay rights. But a shift came with President Obama's victory, a victory for the left that gave them not just the cultural power of this country, but its political power too, and they got drunk on it. They convinced themselves that the days of competing with Republicans were over. They wrote books about the emerging Democratic majority. They allowed themselves to see the right as the backward holdovers of a bygone era, pre-verbal Neanderthals in a world now peopled by articulate Homo sapiens. The Democrats seemed to believe that power was no longer something they had to fight for with good ideas. It was now their birthright. And then came Trump. In 2016, he wrested political power from them. They called him illegitimate, they impeached him twice, and 2/3 of Democrats convinced themselves that Vladimir Putin had messed with the voting machines on Election Day. But then he committed an even worse crime. In 2024, the cultural power shifted right. In the blink of an eye, wearing a MAGA hat and doing the YMCA dance became cool. Believing in God became edgy. Being a committed father and husband became subversive, while the Democrats, encumbered by all the institutions they controlled, including corporate America, became cringe and lame and fake and old. And that happened in large part thanks to Charlie Kirk. He was the nexus where the political and cultural forces met, shifting the nation to the right. And that shift has exponentially accelerated in the week since Charlie's assassination, especially among the young. Last Sunday, millions of Americans went to church to honor Charlie's memory, many for the first time in years. To me, this explains the hatred that Charlie inspired on the left, as it does the hatred of President Trump. Many Democrats don't feel like they lost an election or their grip on the culture. They feel like they have lost what was theirs in perpetuity. And it's ironic. They paint Donald Trump as a threat to democracy, but they are outraged that they still have to compete in one. Until they learn this lesson, they are going to keep losing elections. Consider this fascinating anecdote told by my colleague Elizabeth Vargas this week.
I was talking to two young men this weekend. One is a registered Democrat. The other is what he would call an independent or moderate Republican. Neither one of them agreed with very much of what Charlie Kirk said, but they had watched Kirk's videos on campuses for years as Kirk debated students and anyone else who wanted to stand in line for the chance to prove me wrong, as Charlie Kirk put it, and they respected that. Both of them separately told me this weekend they will never vote for a Democrat again. Both said their social media feeds were filled with far-left agitators celebrating Kirk's assassination.
Notice that it wasn't Charlie's opinions that inspired those young men. It was his willingness to debate. Now, I, like the young men who spoke to Elizabeth Vargas, did not agree with Charlie Kirk about everything. I oppose banning abortion, and my religion doesn't hold that life begins at conception. I am a big fan of the Civil Rights Act, and I think Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. But Charlie Kirk still invited me on his show.
Tell it like it is, tell the truth, and not pander to fake stuff that is thrown at us.
He believed that if he wanted to change the culture and the political landscape, he owed the other side an explanation. If he disagreed with you and he wanted you to change your mind, he believed that it was his job to convince you. And that, at the end of the day, is what it means to be an American, to have enough faith in our fellow Americans to choose persuasion over force. That's what we learned about America this week. With me now is Megyn Kelly, journalist and host of The Megyn Kelly Show on YouTube at Megyn Kelly and wherever you get your podcasts. Megyn, you are one of my biggest role models. Every journalist I know admires you, looks up to you, and tries to be more like you, whether they admit it or not. Thank you so much for joining me and being the first interview on The Batya Show.
Oh, I'm so honored. Congratulations. I love the people at NewsNation. It's no surprise to me that they saw your genius and gave you this very well-deserved show. There's no limit to how far you can take this, Batya. Good luck.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being with me at this very difficult time. I actually learned that Charlie had died from you. I was standing in my home office. I was praying, and I had you on my screen, and I was begging God to save his life, and then I heard this.
There are news outlets reporting the worst right now, Glenn. I don't know what I'm waiting for. They're reporting that Charlie has died. That he's dead. At the age of 31. Which he would have to be if that video was real.
There's no way he survived that.
Megyn, I and the millions of Americans watching you in that moment could feel your pain coming through the screen.
It was awful. It was awful for all of us. And I was so glad Glenn was with me. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, but I don't know. I needed to go through it with somebody, too. I don't think I could have done that without him on the set. You know, you just need someone to be with you in a moment like that. And I hadn't even totally appreciated what it would do for the audience, because I knew that I had to go live when the news that he had been shot broke. I knew I had to get out there. I did know that people were going to want to hear the latest from us and not from anyone else, not from Fox, certainly not from CNN or MSNBC. But I definitely was not thinking that Charlie died, you know, or that he was going to die. Just, you know, it's like I still have not gotten my arms around the fact that he died. And so as the news broke and it became just like undeniable, you know, I guess I was grateful to be on the air so that I could handle it with my own audience in our relationship of trust. And then we just received thousands and thousands of emails saying the same, that if they had to hear that, they were glad they weren't listening to it on MSNBC, you know. And so in that way, Charlie kind of helped independent media even in his dying moment, like reinforced that the platform he built, this other lane he helped build, mattered and helped his audience understand his darkest day.
You knew Charlie for a long time, since he was a kid, really, an 18-year-old kid. What would you say is the most misunderstood aspect of Charlie Kirk?
That he was hateful, the thing that drove his shooter to kill him. He was the opposite of hateful. He was totally joyful. He was a happy warrior from the beginning. That's what made him different. I am a cynical news mofo. You know, I would not refer to myself as a happy warrior exactly. I'm a happy person, but I just like, I've got a newswoman's sense of judgment about the news, which is rather cynical. And he was the opposite. He was like talking to these people like, you can be saved and Jesus loves you, and with enough work, you can change your life. I'm like, these people are terrible. We need to move on without them. And that's honestly, that's what made him so powerful. That's what made people on the left and the right gravitate toward him, because every message was infused really, truly with the Holy Spirit. You could feel it. There was like, I believe the videos where people are saying, I think the reason I feel so connected to him and so sad that he's gone, even though I didn't know him, and some people weren't even fans of his, is because I feel like a kindred spirit, like a kindred Holy Spirit has died. I'm Catholic and I felt it in him, or I'm Jewish and I felt his religious nature, his faith in, God. So I think that's what I experienced when I was in his presence, when I was around him, and when I interviewed him. No matter how dark I would try to take it, Batya, so he'd find some way to put a silver lining on that cloud.
That rings so true to me as a Jewish person. I had the exact same experience of him. I find myself right now in this moment caught between, on the one hand, wanting to honor his legacy of treating even these people on college campuses who have, the worst views like children of God, and wanting to unify. And then on the other hand, wanting to speak the truth. And the truth is, I personally have found myself very offended by the way that the Democratic conversation around this has developed, particularly the both sidesing of political violence in the last 2 weeks. How have you experienced that?
Oh, I mean, it's a lie. It's a blatant lie. They went from he's a right-wing MAGA guy to, okay, well, he wasn't actually a trans person. And then when the mother came out and said, no, I'm telling you it was left-wing ideology, and he'd become very pro-gay and pro-trans, and in that context hated Charlie and was saying he's coming to an event soon. It's a stupid place for him to go, as he was loading up his bullets. They switched to, what does it matter? What does the motive matter? Which is an absurd place to land. Of course it matters, because we're in the mood to prevent another. It's in all of our best interests to actually figure out what drove him and see if there's anything that can be done to prevent the future, the next Tyler Robinson, from taking someone out. Maybe they don't need to worry about it, Batya, because it's only our people who are getting killed. It's only our people who are getting shot at. It's like, oh, I guess it must be really easy to be one of these left-wingers with a podcast or a cable news host, because they don't have to worry about it. It's their people. These latest polls that just hit, there's a YouGov and one other that show, the other one shows 55% of Democrats think political violence is sometimes okay. The YouGov one shows 34%. But when you look on the GOP side, how many think political violence is ever okay? It's down to 7%. This is a left-wing problem. And I don't even need a poll to show me. I can see Charlie in a casket. That tells me everything I need to know.
So Charlie was beautifully eulogized in my synagogue, as he was in synagogues across the country. Like you, Megyn, Charlie hated anti-Semitism. And like you, he was a bulwark against misinformation about Israel and dark conspiracies about Jewish power and what have you. But since his assassination, some on the right have used this moment to blame Israel, talk about Jewish donors, criticize Netanyahu. I'm also seeing a lot of pushback from the right against this at a time that should be a moment of unity and unification, and this kind of spiritual revival we're seeing across the country. Where do you stand on all of this?
Well, leave it to the right to ruin any unifying moment. That's really not their thing. They're fine with infighting. It's kind of what builds them. But there has been some coalition building. I mean, for example, Tucker and Ben talked. That's like a first for a couple of years, so that's good. Those two, I feel like both of those guys are a brother to me, so I hate when they fight. It's like my brothers are fighting. I feel like the sister in the middle. I think criticism of Netanyahu is okay, because he put out a statement that some feel was inappropriate, and I get that, so that's different. But, and if you want to talk about the relationship that Charlie had with Israel, okay, that's fine. I mean, I talked about it on my show only because Candace Owens started bringing it up on her show, and then there was this big question about what happened at this Bill Ackman meeting. And I happened to interview Charlie at length on this subject the day after the Bill Ackman meeting. I mean, I had no idea that there was a meeting. I didn't know any of this. I just brought it up with him. And so we had a half-an-hour chat about where we both stood on Israel on August 6th. And he was really grateful that I brought it up, and we had like the best talk on it. And so I felt like I had the ability to set the record straight on where Charlie was on that issue in a way nobody else did, which is why I brought it up. But I agree. This isn't the time. This wasn't something I injected into the Charlie conversation. This is somebody, other people who are doing it. I brought it up on my show because I do have something to say. I have him on the record on this. And you could hear his full-throated defense of Israel and his love for Israel in that talk. And just, we were both in the same place. And I also feel as he does, and have been very defensive, especially of American Jews who have been getting harassed and bullied off of campuses, and the hostage pictures being torn down. But both of us, after a couple of years, have found areas of criticism, minor, but areas of criticism of Israel, and don't want to be called terrible names because we express them. That's kind of where we both were.
I remember watching that when it came out and feeling very frustrated that anybody would cast aspersions on you and Charlie, who are, you know, the biggest defenders of Jews on the right. But then you see someone like Candace Owens, who has spent all of the time since Charlie passed blaming Jews and Jewish people and Jewish money and Jewish power instead of the left-wing culture that produced the assassin. And I wonder to myself, Megyn, what is your message to Jewish Americans, many of whom fled the left because of this incessant demonization of Israel, who are now sort of seeing things like that cropping up on the right?
Well, I think overwhelmingly the Republican Party still supports Israel. They do. Israel's lost the Dems, like all of them, and they've lost independence. But they still have the Republican Party. The latest poll showed the support among Republicans for Israel went from 76 to 71. So it's down a little, and it's not trending well, which is one of the reasons why I really wish they would wrap it up. And I know it's complicated. Trust me, I get it. I just don't want to see their Republican support evaporate down to the point where they've lost America as an ally. But I still think Republicans and the Republican Party are the friendliest, most welcoming place for American Jews and for Israel. And I really wish American Jews would vote that way. I really do. I mean, having lived 17 years on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, most of my Jewish friends did not vote that way. What are you doing? Come on in, the water's fine. And I hope they remember that this time around. I'll just say one word in defense of Candace, okay? I'm gonna say one, and I realize, I totally understand what you're saying. But I think she's genuinely hurting. And I think like everybody should be given like a little dollop of grace this week, because she was very good friends with Charlie. And she's not wrong that she helped build Turning Point. And I just think everybody's spiraling a little right now. So, you know, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I hear that, and I believe in grace, trust me, although with her, it's sort of a pattern that's been going on for a few years. For another time, Pam Bondi came under fire for suggesting that the government would start prosecuting hate speech. Let's take a look at that.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Now, she did walk this back. It's over. It's over. It's over. She walked it back today, Megyn, but I got to tell you, I think she was watching the Megyn Kelly Show yesterday, because you really gave her a piece of your mind. I mean, it's so funny to me because the Democrats and the left thought that they had got you. You know what I mean? They were out there saying, look at this Republican hypocrisy on free speech. And then you really let her have it. So tell us a little bit about what you said about this.
I mean, it wasn't just me. Most voices on the right were like, what? What? No. Who is this? Who talks like this? A leftist talks like this. Our side for years has been saying to people, no, hate speech is constitutional. Hate speech is free speech and First Amendment protected speech. And it's certainly not okay for the government to crack down on it. The very speech that is protected by the First Amendment is hate speech. Delightful speech that you love hearing requires no protection whatsoever. It's there to protect unpopular speech. And look, I was dear friends with Charlie. The last thing I want to hear is the horrible messages about him. The things celebrating his assassination, the things lying about what a racist he was, what have you. I don't want to hear those, but I'm sorry, they have the right to say it. Now, it doesn't mean that you have the right to stay in the job. Like as an employer, I can employ somebody who's all really super pro political assassination. You can get fired. You can have consequences in your social life, but your government cannot arrest you. Your government cannot harass you. That's squarely in the middle of First Amendment behavior. And what she said there was total inanity, and I really don't know how to explain it.
Well, I'm very glad to see that she walked it back. After the killer was charged, you wrote on Twitter, "I listened to the presser and feel empty inside. The motive was as suspected, so now what? Now Erica knows exactly why they stole her husband, her kid's father, why Charlie will never get to walk their daughter down the aisle and never have a catch with his son. The shooter will likely die by firing squad one day and should. It won't bring Charlie back." Megyn, what does justice for Charlie Kirk look like?
It can't be found in a courtroom. Something will happen there, as I predicted in the tweet, but it can only be found in the religious revival that people are feeling right now, the 54,000 applications for new Turning Point chapters that they say they've gotten from college and high school students alike. People like the guy in the suit saying his wife got him the suit and he's going to wear it and he's going to go to church and treat his wife well. People like the young woman with like the big liberal glasses and the weird hair who looks like a leftist to me saying, "I didn't know Charlie, but the first time I took out a Bible and started reading it and I went to church this Sunday." You know, that's his legacy. If he exponentially increases, especially young people's relationship with God and their faith, he will consider his a life well lived. He, his beautiful widow, Erica, will feel the power of his mark that he left while here. That would be the most important. He said it himself. He wishes to be remembered for courage to my faith. That's what he said. And so, you know, I look around, Batya, and I have to say this. What did we see, like, in this country? We used to be a more faithful country. We were openly faithful, and we would go to church and synagogue and so on the weekends. And then slowly but surely that was eroded and actively erased by leftists. We had lawsuits, we had challenges, we were just told it was wrong, somehow it was bigoted. It got taken down, even though that's how the country was founded, on these Judeo-Christian ideals. And it slowly but surely it was erased, and what were we left with? Utter banality. And you had leftists turn, instead of back to religion, to their own invented religion, which is wokeism, the woke mind virus, which was empty, vacuous, and actually even more dangerous than that. It was just pernicious. It was like a cancer that they were injecting into their veins, and they found out the hard way that it's fatal. You know, that it's fatal to their own hopes in life, their own well-being, their own mental health, and it turned out to be fatal for our side too, for different reasons. And so what if in response to all that, the man who gave his life for this cause winds up steering some portion of that same group, young leftists, back to what we believe, which is the importance of faith in your life, the importance of family, the importance of uplifting messaging, and possibly reaching out to the other side. What if that's what this does? That, if it happens, and it's going to take some years to know really whether it's happened, will be the closest thing we're going to get to justice.
So on that topic of reaching across the aisle, final question for you, Megyn. What are you listening for? What could you hear from the Democrats that would make you feel that this country could achieve unity even at this moment of polarization?
Self-policing. They have to rein in their own. You know, their lunatics do not listen to me. They didn't listen to Charlie on these fronts, and they don't listen to the right. So it has to be all the lovely leftists who have reached out to me in the past week after Charlie died, who say, "I'm so sorry, you know, I'm going to be thinking about my own political messaging from now on. You know, this is wrong, this isn't us, this isn't America." It's fine to say it to me privately, and I do appreciate it. But it needs to be said to their own side openly, loudly, through a microphone when the things are being said. Like, they're the only ones who can police their side and get us back to decency as the default. You know, I can't do it. So I don't have high hopes for it, I'm going to be honest, but I'll wait.
Megyn, God bless you and protect you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You too, Batya. Good luck with everything. I know you won't need it, but I will be praying for you and watching, and I'll come back anytime.
Up next, are Democrats and Republicans really equally to blame for political violence right now? A respectful and civil debate with my all-star panel comes next.
All of us in public life, on both sides of the aisle, have a responsibility to bring down the temperature and to work to unite the American people. Let's be clear. Republicans are not Nazis. Democrats are not responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk, and Republicans were not responsible for the murder of Melissa Hordman. Our political opponents are not our enemies.
That was Senator Dick Durbin this week, a high-ranking Democrat, actually saying out loud into a microphone that Republicans are not Nazis. He made the strongest version of the case the Democrats have been making since Charlie Kirk was murdered. Both sides have a political problem with political violence, and both sides need to take down the temperature. But are the sides equally to blame? Let's ask our panel. He is the founder of Public.News and CBR Chair of Politics, Censorship, and Free Speech at University of Austin. Michael Schellenberger is here with us. And he is the co-host of Two Ways, The Morning Meeting, and The Group Chat, and a former Democratic strategist, Dan Turrentine. Welcome to you both. All right, Dan, let's start with you. Let's take a look at this poll from YouGov. This is number 2. Which found that a quarter of respondents who identified as very liberal said violence can sometimes be justified to achieve political goals, along with 17% of those who identified as liberal, but just 6% of those who identified as conservatives and 3% of those who identified as very conservative. Dan, doesn't this prove that the two sides are not equally to blame for political violence?
Well, I think there were polls about a year after January 6th where Republicans, it became, I think it was like 40% said that some political violence was acceptable. And I think some of that is who's ever out of power feels aggrieved. Where I think our party needs to look in the mirror is during Black Lives Matters, when there was the protest and there were riots in cities and stores were damaged. Tesla dealerships, when we were protesting Doge, keying cars in parking lots. The party has become a little casual about kind of violence. It is violence, intimidation, kind of being a little aggressive. And I think when crazy people hear stuff like someone's a fascist, or it's the end of democracy, or I think on the other side, we're going to not have a country if so-and-so wins, they could hear that and think, I need to act and do something crazy, which is what happened, I think, in Charlie Kirk's case.
So, Michael, where are you on this question of political violence? How did the sort of both sides are responsible, both sides should take down the temperature, hit you this week?
I mean, it was a very sad week. I mean, it was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then it was the response to Charlie Kirk. I mean, those videos that you would see of people celebrating, I mean, it felt like a gut punch. You were sort of like, who are these people? How is this my country? That survey you saw that you quoted from, it's amazing. I mean, it's a 5-fold difference between Democrats supporting violence versus Republicans. There was also a survey that just came out from FIRE, one of the civil liberties advocacy groups, that found that the share of college students who thought that violence would sometimes be necessary to stop a campus speaker rose from under 20% in 2020 to 34% this year. Those are astonishing numbers, and I think it shows the ways in which this, and I'll use a bit of jargon, expressive individualism, or the sense in which I am my feelings, and my feelings are, of such great importance that if they're hurt, that it would constitute some sort of physical violence, that confusion between having hurt feelings and physical harm. It's it's terrifying for us as a democracy.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that I know, Michael, you and I do not agree about. Speaking of free speech, a judge has ordered Mahmoud Khalil to be deported to Algeria or Syria. So tell us how you see the Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, certainly, I mean, they got him on a technicality. I mean, let's be honest about that. They would never have looked at his application a second time had he not been a high-profile Palestinian activist. And that's what concerns me. I'm not arguing that it might be legal. It sounds like it is, and is not a violation of the First Amendment. But my views of free speech are that we shouldn't be using speech as a criteria in that way. You shouldn't I mean, the First Amendment, the spirit of it says the government shall take no action. It doesn't say against citizens. It just says it shall take no action to abridge our freedom of speech. I don't love the government. I don't love it also when they start to withhold money from universities based on the things that their students said. I think you start using speech as a criteria for a whole set of things, whether it's giving a visa or giving grants. Now, look, I think there is some sense in which public money should not go to do bad things.
Dan, where are you on the Mahmoud Khalil story?
Yeah, I mean, look, I you just said it, right? Which is that for our party, like, we do have to look in the mirror about this. We had no problem censoring people when they were Trump supporters or around the Hunter Biden laptop or other things. I too don't like the idea of targeting people because they're pro-Palestinian or they, disagree with Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, you can have that. That is, universities are supposed to be a place of debate. Both parties are struggling with the issue of Palestine and Israel right now.
Dan and Michael, stick with us, because next, I think there's more that can bring us together than divides us. We're going to find some common ground over free speech. Bundy came under fire for suggesting that the government would start prosecuting hate speech. Let's take a look at that. Megyn Kelly was one of many on the right irritated by Attorney General Pam Bondi saying that the DOJ will go after people over hate speech, a clear and obvious violation of the First Amendment. Bondi later clarified her comments, but she was just the first of a number of Trump officials who seemed less stalwart in their defense of free speech this week than they had the week before, including the president himself. Watch.
So on network television, there is a licensing. I'll give you an example. I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I get 97% negative. They're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away.
That was in response to ABC suspending Jimmy Kimmel over his hateful commentary on Charlie Kirk's assassination after the FCC chair suggested retaliation. Okay, let's bring back our panel, Michael Schellenberger and Dan Turrentine. Here's the question on the table. Is the Trump administration overreaching on free speech, Dan?
Oh, this is too easy. Absolutely, they are. I think there's two things. I think, look, this is a president whose history is he doesn't like being criticized. He's very concerned about his appearance. He follows his own press probably closer than any president ever has. I think at the same time, one of the things that Trump seems to be acting on in this second term is if you want something from us, an acquisition, a merger approved by a department, a license for something, what are you doing for me personally to help me? And that is something we have not historically seen in this country. And I think that's where even Republicans on Capitol Hill and some in his administration are beginning to kind of quietly say, that's not the greatest thing for us to be doing.
Michael.
It's an easy one, too. I mean, the Pam Bondi remark, obviously, but threatening the licenses of the broadcasters obviously crosses a line. We had FCC Chair Brendan Carr say that we can do this the easy way or the hard way, even if it didn't affect the decisions by Nexstar and Sinclair. It certainly crossed the line in terms of what they call jawboning. So for me, yeah, unfortunate, because like I said, I think the Trump administration has done a number of really positive things to dismantle the censorship industrial complex.
There was also this ridiculous response to Jimmy Kimmel being benched from some of the other late night comics. Let's take a look at that.
From Comedy Central, it's the all-new government-approved Daily Show. With your patriotically obedient host, Jon Stewart.
We are all Jimmy Kimmel. I still have a show, though, right? Okay, good.
That we are all Jimmy Kimmel. Give me a break. That was from Charlie Hebdo. People were saying that about Charlie Kirk, people who were murdered. The idea that a millionaire getting benched for saying disgusting things, who then we learned refused to apologize, that is somehow comparable. I don't know, that really rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, I think part of it is Democrats are struggling with the fact that we are losing control of institutions that we have controlled for, most of the last century, right? The media, universities, law firms, C-suites, right? Most of these institutions lean to the left. And so while I think, the fact that Trump does want people to say nice things about him, he's very easily rattled when people say not nice things, is one thing. But I think what's really ultimately underneath all of this is this sense of like, what do you mean that conservatives now are going to have, either control of or equal seat at the table? They just, again, I go back to, they don't respect MAGA, they don't understand MAGA, and they don't understand how it could be possible that we have to accept them. And I think that's really what a lot of them is animating them.
Michael, a lot of people in MAGA defended the FCC chair They did not defend Pam Bondi. In fact, she was forced to walk back her comments because people like Megyn Kelly and others made it very clear that this was unacceptable. So I think MAGA's pointing to that to show, no, we're not hypocrites. We are still the side of free speech. What do you make of that argument?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting because I think the condemnation of hate speech, I think it was just using the language that the left had used, and so it was pretty easy for the right to see through that. I think the fact that Brendan Carr was jawboning. Now, I do think it's important to remember that, you know, when it came to COVID, progressives and Democrats were the ones adamantly demanding censorship of online speech. The White House demanded censorship of Facebook. Facebook's own people said it actually backfires to censor people sharing information about vaccine side effects because they become more paranoid about what the vaccines are. But Facebook eventually said we better go along with it because we need the Biden administration's help in getting our data out of Europe as part of some complicated data situations. So you had all that jawboning happening under Biden, and it was being encouraged by the media. So to then see them turn around and make a big fuss around Kimmel, I don't take it seriously coming from those people.
Dan Turrentine, Michael Schellenberger, thank you both so much for joining me. God bless and protect you.
Congratulations on your show. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, guys. Ahead, the biggest media miss this week, continued hedging and lack of clarity over something as clear and obvious as the suspect's motive in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Welcome back to the show. Time now for a segment we are calling, wait for it, Media Misses. A time in the show where we're going to take a look at some of the ways in which media, anchors, hosts, reporters, talking heads, you name it, took a swing and missed by a lot. Here with us now, Dr. Drew Pinsky, Chief Patient Officer at the Wellness Company, and Link Lauren, host of Spot On with Link Lauren and former Senior Advisor to RFK Jr. Thank you both so much for joining me. Okay, so we're going to start with some of our favorite media fails. There were a lot since Charlie Kirk was murdered, but here are just a few of our favorites.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who was transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
There are people who are trying to pigeonhole this as a leftist thing and a right thing, and what we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this, we're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved.
And we don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened to fire the gun in celebration.
All right, Dr. Drew, let's start with you. Explain the psychology to me behind people just refusing to admit the motive that came out, that was told to us by the shooter himself in his Discord, by so many other. What is the psychology there?
It's cognitive dissonance, right? When people's view of the world gets challenged to the point where it all crumbles down, they will reach for some extraordinary means to defend the position they were in, including, as both Montel did and that ABC reporter, it's what Curtis Hawk calls, murderers are people too. Like, that's literally how insane their position was. And the fact that they were talking about his love-torn sort of texting and stuff, if indeed they were not just a cover for something, if they were real, what came out actually in those texts was a cold-bloodedness, that the feelings really brought into focus the fact that he did not care about having killed somebody. It's amazing. And they missed all that. Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Link, I want you to talk to us about where does this, like, the love story angle come from? What is that about to where you have journalists rhapsodizing about this beautiful love story of a murderer?
Well, it's great to be with you, Batya. I also have to congratulate you on your new show. I'm so excited for you. I don't know if anybody has said that yet. So thank you for having me and having all of us. You know, what's interesting, the mainstream media lost all of their credibility during the Biden administration because they told us Biden was quick and sharp and doing cartwheels in private, and we just couldn't see it for ourselves. So they already unmasked themselves as liars and frauds, and I think they don't want to cop to the fact that this guy is one of their own. We have sources on record saying he rejected his family's doctrine. He went far left. He went violent radical. He was in this sort of transgender furry cult on the internet. That's who Tyler Robinson was. And they don't want to admit he's one of their own because they spent years calling us Nazis, fascists, threats to democracy, and they have blood on their hands in their own way.
Yeah, and the crime data is so distorted in terms of where the violence is coming from. People really believe that they expect it only coming from the right when it is exquisitely obvious that it is consistently coming from the left. And that is challenging their worldview dramatically. It is, you know, Adam Carolla was talking to him about this the other day, and somebody was asking, well, how do you know he's coming from the left? And Adam said, because he tried to kill Charlie Kirk. That's all you need to know. He tried to kill Charlie Kirk.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
All right, I want to move on to something else. Next week, the media is going to be blitzed by one Kamala Harris, whose book is coming out. She has a lot to say. But for now, there was some recent news that she may have a challenger in 2028, an unexpected one. We just learned that AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is considering a run for president in 2028. Link, you're a young person. What did you think when you saw the news?
Well, I think this is great. I think AOC should run. I think Jasmine Crockett should run. I think Gavin Newsom should run so they can continue losing every single election. The problem with the Democrats is they look like the party of the elites. When AOC came into the game, she was like, I'm this bartender. I'm this relatable girl from around the block. She has basically become one of the elites. When she put on those aviators and went out there with Joe Biden, she rejected her entire brand that she spent years building, right? So these Democrats are going to come around. They're going to host events with Beyonce and rich celebrities, and they're not going to speak to the working class Americans. So time and time again, she can try, but she will continue to fail.
And all the uncanny things she has said is going to be on full display. It'll be awesome.
I have to say, I'm a big AOC fan. I feel like she is actually very genuine and
Listen,
really
I'm a Jasmine Crockett fan. I think she's hysterical. I think she's great. I like them. I like them both. I do not want them being president, but I'd love to see them in the circus that has become politics today.
All right. Thank you both, Dr. Drew and Link Lauren, and we will see you soon. Next, is Charlie Kirk's death a turning point to bring America together? My final thoughts coming up. Tomorrow, my friend and colleague Leland Vittert will be hosting special coverage live from Arizona of Charlie Kirk's memorial beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, right here on NewsNation. But before we go, we began the show with what we learned about America this week, and we end it with what we're looking toward next week. Tomorrow will be a truly American day. Fans will fill NFL stadiums across the country to watch football, and they'll tune in on TV, while many of us will watch the memorial service for a special young man gunned down for free speech. A young man so special, it takes a football stadium to hold all of the mourners. As we Jews say, Zichrono Livracha, or may his memory be for a blessing. What exactly is that blessing? It's the blessing of a unity that comes from the pursuit of truth, from debate and discourse and holding people close whose views infuriate us. All week we've been told to take down the temperature, that both sides have a problem with violence. I've taken objection to that. The sides are not equally at fault, certainly not in Charlie's assassination, but also, in my view, more generally. But there's another truth that's been eclipsed by the discourse, and it's this: more unites us as Americans than divides us. The vast majority of Americans are horrified at what happened to Charlie Kirk, be they Democrats or Republicans. And they don't want their fellow Americans to be denounced as Nazis and fascists. The vast majority support the First Amendment and hold our free speech rights dear. And they deserve leaders who agree with them on both fronts. What I'm looking to hear in the coming weeks is leaders willing to stand together and embrace their differences from a position of respect, as Charlie Kirk did in the pursuit of unity. Thank you all for the honor of having you today. I look forward to hearing from you and exchanging ideas in the future. May God bless and protect you and the United States of America.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.